Hello and welcome to another episode of Snake's Territory. Normally that's when the intro music would play, but apparently there is no intro music today. I must have accidentally gotten rid of it. But that feels fitting, Jack, because the Diamondbacks have just lost their third consecutive game. They lose in brutal fashion to the Toronto Blue Jays by a final score of 8-1. Jack, it was a game that was competitive for a time. Diamondbacks scored their one and only run in the top half of the sixth inning, cut it down to a 2-1 game, and then it was all Blue Jays the rest of the way, and we wind up with a score that looks pretty lopsided.
Bullpen happened once again. This time it wasn't the ninth inning. It was the sixth and seventh. And as we are musicalists, I was thinking of Simon and Garfunkel's Sounds of Silence.
That's fair. That's fitting. Yeah, the Diamondbacks bullpen woes, Jack. I mean, they just continue to happen. We saw it in the game yesterday with Shelby Miller. He's been so good for this team throughout much of this season. I don't think we can really have a conversation about Shelby Miller being the problem. I mean, he has been really the solution, one of few things going right for the Diamondbacks when it comes to the bullpen. But you saw it today. Taylor Scott, a guy they recently picked up and has been on the team here for about a week or so. He struggled in this game, wound up allowing 3 runs, and then Kevin Ginkel, a guy who's been a staple in this bullpen here for quite a while, he gave up 3 runs as well. His ERA is now up to 13.50. I guess it feels less relevant now, Jack, because the Diamondbacks ultimately lost this game by 7 runs. But we probably should at least talk a little bit about Torey Lovullo's decision to pitch to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That came with runners at second and third in the 6th inning, a 3-1 game at that point. Still, the Diamondbacks very much in it. And Torey Lovullo, with second and third and 2 outs, opted to pitch to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Guerrero responded by hitting a 2-run double, turned a 3-1 game into a 5-1 game. And that, while the Diamondbacks didn't actually score any runs in this game anyway, maybe it didn't matter, but it very much felt like a big emotional push for the Blue Jays where they really broke away, and the Diamondbacks were really not in this game after that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in that dugout, so I can't tell you if it took the wind out of their sails in the dugout. It took the wind out of my sails, and it took the wind out of Luis Gonzalez's sails. I mean, listening to him talk about it. I think the thing there is, he made a great point, which is, why go back to the fastball there? Why not throw the slider? If you're going to pitch to him and you got him swinging and hacking at the slider, why did you throw a fastball?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna attack him in that situation, you've got to call the right pitches. You got to have the right plan. You got to be buttoned down, and they were anything but. But yeah, it was a bad decision. Clearly, it was one that was questioned in real time. This is not second guessing Torey. It was first guessing him. Nobody could understand why he did that, and it blew up in his face. I mean, I don't really know what he was thinking there. I'm sure it's a question that they're going to ask on the post game. I'm not really all that interested in the answer at this point.
Yeah, the reality, as I said earlier, is that this game was not, decided by those 2 runs that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. drove in that spot. Diamondbacks ultimately lose by 7. I will say, just on that note really quick, that what made it even more bizarre to me was that Torey did intentionally walk Vlad Jr. earlier in the game in a similar spot, and it worked, right? This was the 3rd inning. Heineman led off with a single, then Bo Bichette flew out. Addison Barger hit a double, so you had second and third there with 1 out, and Torey decided to intentionally walk Vlad Jr., and the Diamondbacks were able to work out of that spot. Still, the Blue Jays scored a run because of a catcher's interference. But yeah, I mean, that's the approach that we often see the D-backs take in those situations under Torey Lovullo. Just very bizarre that he decided not to go that route there. But yeah, at the same time, this was a game that really was not all that competitive when all was said and done. Diamondbacks lose.
Sorry, I was just peeking a listen at Torey. He's just saying he wouldn't be surprised if Corbin Carroll plays tomorrow, and they're going to continue to evaluate him through the night. I'm sure he's going to get imaging. That's the kind of thing where, probably got to let swelling go down, go take an x-ray. We're not going to know anything concrete about that until tomorrow. You're muted, Jesse.
There we go. No, it was my turn. It's been your turn doing that here for a while now, so I was bound to make that mistake eventually. Yeah, I mean that's another big subplot within this game is that Corbin Carroll was hit by a pitch in the top half of the eighth inning in this game. It did not look good at all in the moment that it happened. He seemed to be in a lot of pain, and then he went to first base and stayed in the game and was kind of chuckling over there at first with Vlad Jr. You figured things were going to be fine, and then he decided to remove himself from the game shortly thereafter. But good news there with what you're saying, where Torey is apparently wouldn't be surprised if Corbin was back in the lineup tomorrow. Of course, that's huge for the Diamondbacks, really bigger than any other plot within this game. Corbin Carroll's health moving forward is really most important. I guess the other thing we can touch on here, Jack, before we dive back into some bullpen talk, is the fact that this offense has really dried up here over the last few days. They had their heroic comeback against the San Diego Padres on Saturday, and since then, you and I were just adding up the numbers before we hopped on. The Diamondbacks have scored 7 runs in their past 3 games and are 17 for 97 as a team. That's a 175 team batting average here over these last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, the 33 strikeouts are probably the one that really sticks in my brain. And just, they're just swinging and missing and not having good approaches, and a lot of, first and second pitch outs as well. It's 3 games for one of the league's leading offense. So, we live in a world of recency bias, and I don't want to overreact to it. But it's not like, today they were facing a Cy Young winner. It was Eric Lauer.
Yeah.
I think the one thing to think about is they've struggled so much against left-hand pitching this year. And, a big piece of that actually is Ketel Marte struggling against left-hand pitching.
Yeah.
He's not been the monster that he was in the past. And we've heard many times the irony of the fact that he's hitting all his home runs and had so much better numbers hitting left-handed. It's tough to keep a swing from both sides of the plate fresh and in order. I mean, it's generally the case that a switch hitter is doing better from one side or the other at different points in time. So the greatest switch hitters, some of the greatest switch hitters had pretty equal numbers for their career. But even within that, you'll see some ebb and flow. It's just tough to keep them going from the both sides at the same time. So, that's a problem. And then, I was looking up until August 27th last year, Randall Grichuk only had a 735 OPS. And it was really an insane final 60 plate appearances for Randall that gave him such good final end of year. He increased his OPS over 100 points, 130, 40 points over the span of 60 plate appearances to end the year. This year he's in the low mid 700s again as well. He's not hitting all that well now. He's been cooled off in large part by the fact that they haven't faced very many lefties, and he's not getting very many starts. And there's certainly a case to be made, and many people have complained about the fact that he hasn't gotten at least a couple extra starts to keep him fresher. And I would agree with that. I mean, as much as Pavin Smith has been slumping, it wouldn't have killed them to just give Grichuk 1 or 2 extra starts. I'm not saying abandon the platoon and bench Pavin Smith with his 840 OPS or whatever it is right now. But at the same time, when a guy goes into a slump that deep and you're not getting any playing time for Grichuk, give this man a few more plate appearances and see if you can get him going. So I think that there's something to second guess there as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Grichuk, we talked about it the other day. His overall numbers are just okay, and he has heavy reverse splits right now. He has a 667 OPS against lefties compared to a 940 against righties. You don't expect that to hold in the long term, but it is a big reason why this team is struggling against lefties right now. The other name that I'll bring in here, which I believe we had someone mention this in the chat, Bobby made a good point in the chat that Eugenio Suarez is also struggling against lefties. He's never been the type of hitter, at least to my knowledge, certainly not in his D-backs tenure, he's not the type of guy who you expect to just destroy left-handed pitching. He's generally been more of an even splits guy. But this season, Gino against lefties is 8 for 62. That's a 129 batting average and a 559 OPS. So all that to say, yes, lefties have been an issue for the Diamondbacks for a variety of reasons, and we certainly saw that again here in this game. But we have a whole lot of other topics to get to. Primarily, is it possible that the Diamondbacks could make a trade at some point relatively soon in order to get themselves some bullpen help? Obviously, the bullpen has been an issue certainly in the last couple of days and really all season long. We're going to dive into that topic along with some others on the other side of this break.
Kratz, real question for you. So I'm in Arena Club and I opened up a slab pack. I pulled a Wyatt Langford auto rookie card. I got an immediate offer from Arena Club. I turned it down. It was in the mid 300s range. I've gotten a few offers since. Thoughts on Wyatt? Should I hold on?
I saw it. I didn't see it when you ripped the pack, but it looks so sick with everything around it and how it's spinning in your showroom. That John looked nice. But no, you shouldn't sell it. Maybe wait till he makes an all-star or two, and all of a sudden that 300 goes up, and you're going to get another instant offer right away on Arena Club.
That's right. Buy, sell, trade. Slab packs are there for you too to rip a pack. And for me, I'm just leaving it in the showroom for now. I'm deciding what I'm going to do with it. But if I did want to sell it, then I can get myself another slab pack or buy a card that I want to buy. Get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/Val. Use code FOUL.
Well, we are back here on Snakes territory, now asking the very pressing question. It is the headline of this episode. Is it possible that the Diamondbacks could strike early and try to get some bullpen help here before July 31st? I think what a lot of people are in the Diamondbacks world right now are saying, Jack, is that yes, it's great for us to get some bullpen help at the trade deadline, but we can't wait 6 weeks. Like we need this to happen now. And you can understand why people feel that way given the recent performance of this bullpen and really the season-long performance of this bullpen. But as we often say around this time of year, it is hard to pull off trades in June. And we suspect that might be a challenge once again this year.
Yeah, I wrote an article today over on Arizona Diamondbacks on SI, and it was based off of Mike Hazen's interview on Luke and Wolf this morning on Arizona Sports. And essentially what he said is, as of right now, there's only a couple of clear-cut sellers. Now, one of the things I wrote is, when we look at the standings, we probably extrapolate that into more than just two teams. Clearly, those two teams would be the Rockies and the White Sox. There's a case to be made that the Marlins, the Nationals, the Athletics, those teams should all be considered sellers. A lot of people are very interested in what's going on with the Baltimore Orioles. But Mike Hazen was very emphatic in the fact that, there's only a couple teams right now that are sellers. Now, what I said in the article was, hey, he's the one on the phone talking to the other GMs. And he's the one fielding calls. He's the one making calls. And so if he's saying that the market has not opened up yet, I have to take him at that word. And I would think that, for any of those teams, there's probably a handful of teams that are on the fence. Whether or not the D-backs should be one of those teams is a separate question. But if there's a number of teams that are on the fence, it would take such a massive overpay for a relief pitcher of any substance. Look, the Cardinals aren't selling Ryan Helsley. They're ahead of the Diamondbacks in the standings. Now, maybe David Bednar should be available. But clearly, right now, the Pirates aren't dealing him. They still have another year of control of him after this year. And so they may not be willing to make that move yet. Now, it may be something that they're willing to do in a few more weeks. I don't know. The Nationals may still view themselves as a team that still has a chance. So, Mike was very clear that, the players that they have now are going to have to step up and carry the load for the immediate future. There's just no way that he's going to be able to pull off a trade for relief help in the next couple of weeks. It's just not going to happen. So That's the reality that we face. Now, the last thing I'm going to say on this, and I'll kick it back to you, Jess, is frankly, I have very little confidence that the bullpen is currently constructed is going to be able to keep the Diamondbacks in the race. So that's a pretty damning thing to say, but this is what I truly believe, and so I got to say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable why why you would be feeling that way. They haven't exactly inspired confidence here in recent days. I think the other element of making a trade, Jack, something that we've also talked about recently, is that the Diamondbacks being aggressive and making a trade like that now, even if it were possible, maybe there is a way where they could overpay a little bit right now and get one of those teams that's not in firm sell mode yet, but is trending in that direction. Maybe there's a package that you could entice them with in order to get them to move. However, given where the Diamondbacks are in the standings right now, we're not even really sure that they should be buyers to begin with, right? I mean, that's another big conversation D-backs fans are having right now, much less buyers who are very aggressive and willing to overpay a little bit in order to make one of those moves sooner than later. I think it's why, breaking down some recent radio interviews with Mike Hazen and with Ken Kendrick, we kind of get the sense from both of them that while the Diamondbacks appear to be in a position where they would at least like to be buyers, they seem to be expecting to buy at the trade deadline, they're not giving an indication that they're planning on moving anytime soon. Even if that was possible for them, it feels like this is something where they want to give it some time and see where they are a month from now, and then at that point decide whether it's worth pushing in the chips to buy with this team. And given how much, given what the last few days have looked like here, Jack, where they've lost 3 in a row, they're back under 500, it is hard for me, even if there was a deal to be made out there, to really feel confident that this team is worth investing in to that degree. It just has not felt that way here recently.
Right. I think, I want to address, because I've seen this sentiment also. Ernesto makes a comment, it's trade now for a multi-year closer and overpay, or just sell. You still need a closer for next year anyway. So that's a very valid thought. And I want to acknowledge that. I think the one thing to keep in mind is that if they want to sell, they're still going to be in a very strong sell position 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. It's June 18th. So if you want to see how things play out, once they've finished, if they haven't taken advantage of Rockies, White Sox, Marlins, if they go through those games and have not taken advantage and at least made a move, then you're at a point where you might say, what, let's blow this market up. God forbid if they, really kind of fail and go under 500 against those 3 teams. Then at that point, Mike Hazen has to face the reality that he just doesn't have the team to compete. If they can't beat Marlins, White Sox, and Rockies at this juncture of the season, when your team is now a game under 500, and you're looking to salvage the 3rd game against a good team like the Blue Jays, if you can't do that, and you're coming up onto the 4th of July, time to punt. He's got to accept that too. Just like the fans need to accept that it's going to take some time for the market to develop, Mike may have to accept a little earlier than he planned that this team isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. We'll see if certainly Mike seems like the type of guy who his natural bent is to be aggressive. He wants to be in a position to buy. That's going to be his leaning, but he hasn't fully committed to that yet. I don't think anything he said has suggested that the Diamondbacks have already decided what they're doing. That is really not the indication that we get at all. Looking at
what I want to say real quick here is that from Mike's words, his own words are, I'm not an idiot.
Right.
If we get to the end of July, okay, keywords end of July, and we're not in a position, then I'll do what I have to do. He's not irresponsible and he's not an idiot. My thought process there is, the flip side of everything is if you are selling and you decide a little earlier, you get more if you're offering up that extra 3 or 4 weeks of playing time for the players you're selling. There's a difference between selling on July 4th and selling on July 31st. Now, maybe that's counterbalanced by letting the market develop and let people start bidding against each other. I don't know. But if somebody wants to be really aggressive and you get a deal you like, you may have to make that decision early. That's where I'm.
What Mike was talking about today when he was on Wolf and Luke was basically the idea that this team's bullpen is going to need to get by with internal improvements from the guys that are already here. And unfortunately, Jack, that's not exactly, we did not exactly get a glimpse of that in this most recent game against the Toronto Blue Jays, where the bullpen, gave up 6 more runs. And it's a little bit hard, to your point earlier, to imagine the tide turning for this bullpen. I mean, entering play today, one of the bullpen stats that I like to look at is WPA, win probability added. I think we can all agree that sometimes ERA doesn't tell the whole story. If you give up, a run in a situation where you're already down by 8 runs, it's not nearly as significant as if you give up a run in a tie game. And WPA basically captures that and tries to give you a sense of how much your bullpen has either helped your chances of winning or hurt your chances of winning over the course of the season. And the D-backs are dead last in that stat at this point. They're at minus 2.91. League average is right around 1 or 2. So on average, a team has gotten a slightly positive contribution from their bullpen in their win probability added. The Diamondbacks are at almost minus 3. And just to add some context there, the best team in baseball in this regard entering play on Wednesday was the San Francisco Giants at plus 5.27. The Padres not far behind them at 3.89. I mean, you're talking about the difference of minus 3 and plus 5 there, Jack. I mean, that's a difference of 8 wins, 8 games in the standings just based off the performance of your bullpen. And I mean, that's just the reality of this unit. It has not only been another year of a bad D-backs bullpen, it has been one of the worst bullpens that we have ever seen the Diamondbacks have. And that's frankly saying something given how this team usually does in that regard.
Yeah, and I just want to hone in a little bit too. This is not really so much about blown saves. Yeah. Tonight was a good example. You're at a 2-1 ball game in the 6th inning, and your middle relievers in the 6th and 7th blew the game up. That's what's been killing them. The fact that the D-backs have 14 blown saves, which is tied for second in the league, has been getting a lot of play all over the radio and online and so forth. But it's important to note they also have 22 saves. So that's 36 save opportunities, and their conversion percentage is 61%. League average is 63%. You know who else is at 61%? The New York Mets. You know who only has 2 more saves and 2 fewer blown saves than the Diamondbacks? The Los Angeles Dodgers, who have the same number of save opportunities, 36. So the Dodgers, the Mets, and the D-backs have the same number of save opportunities, 36. The Phillies are the only team that has more save opportunities than the Diamondbacks. They have 37. They've blown 15 for a 59%. So everyone's been kind of fixated on the blown save number. That's not the number. The number that Jesse's talking about, the WPA number, that's the number. And the problem is not so much what's happening in the 9th inning. The problem is what's happening before that with the middle relief and the soft underbelly. I mean, Kevin Ginkel has a 13.5 ERA. Ryan Thompson is still over 5. Joe Mantiply got DFA'd with a 15 ERA. Just on and on. And most of the guys that I think Taylor Scott's now well over 6. Most of the guys that they've tried just haven't worked. This isn't so much about blown saves. It's just about a total unit failure that 2 injuries completely decimated this bullpen. That shouldn't be. The soft underbelly of this bullpen shouldn't have been that soft. Justin Martinez and AJ Puck going down, huge losses. But even if they didn't, this would still be a well below average bullpen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all very well said. I guess in summary, Jack, where we stand here is that yes, it might be great if the D-backs could acquire some bullpen help sooner than later. It's not as if they don't need it. Clearly they do. And yet also we have questions about whether you really want to be that aggressive, whether you'd be willing to likely overpay, certainly pay more than you would a month from now. And also whether there's actually a team out there that's even willing to entertain something like this at this point anyway. There are some pretty big obstacles here for the Diamondbacks to make any additions here.
Yeah. One other thing that Mike said is he said, it's not like I can bring in 6 relievers.
Yeah.
If he's able to bring in one high impact, high leverage reliever and then one pretty good middle reliever, that would be amazing. That would be a huge win. Even that's going to be very difficult to do. But they can't just swap out 5 relievers. It's not going to happen like that.
Yeah. At a certain point, you're going to need not necessarily all of these guys who are struggling, but you're going to need a few of them to kind of figure things out. And it has just been continued to be a struggle for basically all of these guys here as the season wears on. Well, we have a couple of other things that we want to get to, primarily the fact that Gabriel Moreno has not played here in a couple of days, trying to figure out what's going on there. And we will discuss that as well as some other things on the other side of this break.
It is summertime. We are in the thick of golf season. It's always golf season down in Florida, but we're in the thick of golf season across the country. And if someone's looking to get a new club, that logo should say it all. PXG. What do they do?
Go get fitted. Mm-hmm. Go get fitted by one of their master fitters, professional fitters. I've done it. It's helped shave many strokes off my handicap. It is worth it. It's educational. You learn about not only clubs, you learn about shafts, you learn about grips, you learn about angles. They have all the numbers, all the setups that you need to help improve your handicap.
You feel like a VIP when you're there.
100%. They even help my putting, which needed help.
Mm-hmm. They help your putting there. That's how cool it is. So schedule your fitting today, and for a limited time, you could save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/foul. That's pxg.com/foul to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/FOUL. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Well, Jack, it feels like every year around midseason, we are talking about Gabriel Moreno having some kind of precarious injury situation that pops up. He has been a very important member of this team ever since they acquired him a couple of years ago. And we don't really know what the situation is as of right now. We know that he has a sore hand that has kept him out here the past couple of days. We know that this goes back to that dreaded rain suspended game back on Friday, June 6th out in Cincinnati, where this injury originally happened. It doesn't sound like there's any fractures here, Jack, but it's still bothering Moreno, and you can't keep having Jose Herrera catch every single game. So it's possible that we're headed towards some kind of roster move here. And I think you're muted. There we go. Now we're even. We're really good at this.
I was trying to listen to Torey on Twitter during the break.
Fair enough.
So, a couple days ago, Adrian Del Castillo was pulled from the lineup pregame. There was a lot of buzz around that. Everybody thought, well, that means that he's coming up and Gabby's going on the IL. A source told me that Adrian Del Castillo did not have a locker prior to today's game. Now, he may have been flown out to Toronto to be on the taxi squad, or he may still be in Reno, or he may be in Phoenix with some other injury. We don't know. It's a mystery. And I made an inquiry and I haven't gotten a response yet. So, we'll know soon enough tomorrow what's going on there. And we're going to be doing another live show tomorrow, so we'll probably be able to discuss this in a little bit more detail. But, the bottom line is, catchers get hurt. It's a tough position. Gabby's been prone to get hurt. He gets knocked around pretty good. It's going to be a huge blow again for the Diamondbacks if he misses any kind of significant time.
Yeah. Adrian Del Castillo, we mentioned it the other day. He has put up really good numbers in Reno. Granted, it's 5 games because he's been hurt most of the season. But in those 5 games, Del Castillo has gone 5 for 17, 6 walks, 6 strikeouts, a 294 average, 1105 OPS. So you feel pretty good about what Del Castillo could bring offensively. Obviously, there have been some questions there about his defense. Who knows? Maybe if Del Castillo comes up and is hitting really well, then maybe when Gabby comes back, the D-backs are still wanting Adrian Del Castillo at the big league level in some capacity. I think that's possible. But yeah, just a situation to continue to monitor here. Jose Herrera, as I said, has stepped in and been the D-backs everyday guy here for a while. We know that that can't necessarily continue for forever. So we'll continue to stay up on this situation for sure.
Well, one thing we shouldn't have to worry about is, in the past, we always worried about Del Castillo's ability to throw out base runners, but it appears that nobody's going to be able to throw out anybody this year anyway. It doesn't really matter. Gabby's only thrown out a few guys. I think Herrera's only thrown out a couple. That just, that's not been an issue. So it's not like we're going from when Gabby had a 40% caught stealing rate. Now it's under 20. It's in the teens, and I don't think Guerrero is much better. So, it's not as big a factor. So going forward, the bat may play. They really like the way Guerrero handles the pitching staff, but there is a tipping point. I mean, his WRC plus is dipping into the 50s now, I think.
Yeah, it generally hovers in that range. It is funny you mentioned the numbers with Gabby. His caught stealing percentage is down into the teens, which is generally not good. But if you look at his baseball savant page, they have him at +2 caught stealing above average, meaning that given how much time he's actually had to throw out all these guys, the actual situations he's been in, his outcomes are actually better than average, which I think is really an indictment on the Diamondbacks pitching staff, Jack, that unit has not been good at all this season at holding guys on base.
Yeah, I guess my point was that the pitchers are so bad at holding guys on base, it doesn't matter who's catching. That was kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, well, you said it. I think that's pretty fair, pretty accurate. Well, yeah, we certainly hope Gabby's okay. He's a big part of this team. Who knows? Maybe the stolen base situation would be even more grave than it's been so far this year if Gabby hasn't been in there. So, certainly hope that he's able to get back for this team here shortly. Beyond that, Jack, I mean, we could sit here and talk about the bullpen for until we're blue in the face, but I think at a certain point, you just need Ryan Thompson to kind of start pitching like Ryan Thompson of the last couple years. You need Kevin Ginkel to start pitching like Kevin Ginkel of the past couple of years. I know Thompson has shown some positive strides lately through a scoreless inning in this game today. Juan Murillo got 3 big outs in the game yesterday before Shelby Miller had his rough game. So I guess there are glimpses here and there, but you just need so much more from this group. And the Diamondbacks have a 5.27 bullpen ERA. That is as bad as I think I could possibly imagine here on June 18th.
Yeah, probably my next little geek out with the numbers is going to be to remind everyone that we need to use ERA plus or ERA minus and put those numbers into greater context, because some years if you just look at straight up bullpen ERA, it can be misleading. Some years the league average runs scored is much lower, some it's much higher. So in context, this is already just about right there. If it's not the worst, it's like the second or third worst bullpen in Diamondbacks history.
And that is saying something, because historically the Diamondbacks have been basically the worst team in baseball when it comes to their bullpen as a whole, dating back to 1998 when this team first existed. I believe they've been last in Fangraph's WAR in that regard. basically for a number of years now, going back to 1998. So it's one thing to talk about the worst bullpen in a franchise's history. It's another thing to talk about the worst bullpen, or one of the worst bullpens in Diamondbacks franchise history, because we've seen some brutal bullpens come through here in Arizona.
Yeah, unfortunately. And it's been worse since 2018. I mean, from 2018 to now, not only do they rank last, but it's like the gap between the Diamondbacks at number 30 and I think it's the Marlins at Nationals at number 29 is quite large. Like, I think the gap between 29 and 30 is bigger than the gap between like 1 and 10.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. It's been just brutal stuff. I'm looking right now, and this is not sorted by the fancy, ERA plus, ERA minus numbers that I think you're very right to say that we probably should be looking at. But just by pure ERA, 5.24 entering play here on Wednesday is the third worst D-backs bullpen ERA in team history, trailing only 2010 when they were at 5.74 and 2005 when they were at 5.50. And even though this isn't like league adjusted and park adjusted, Jack, I mean, Chase Field is more pitcher friendly now than it's been for at least most of its tenure. And the run scoring environment as a whole is more diminished now than it's been throughout most of the last 25 years. So I don't think it's a fluky third worst bullpen in D-backs history. I mean, it might even be worse than that, if anything.
Yeah, 2005 was a higher run scoring era, and like you said, they does all pre-humidor and pre-turf. So Chase Field was among the more hitter-friendly parks in a more hitter-friendly league in 2005.
Does it mean anything to you that the Diamondbacks, their team bullpen FIP is 4.51, their xFIP is 4.11? Are they getting gravely unlucky, and they should be far, far better than they are? What do you think?
Well, the Diamondbacks are minus 14 defensive runs saved, DRS.
Yeah.
Their fielding run value over at StatCast was +7, but 5 of that was from framing. So, non-catcher framing somewhere between basically +2 and -14. So it's negative. I mean, below average. They've had a below average defense. It's not just the errors. I mean, they don't have as much range. They don't make as many outstanding plays to take away hits as they used to.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did find the ERA minus numbers. So these would be park adjusted and league adjusted. And that 5.24 team bullpen ERA is second worst in franchise history when you use ERA minus, 2010 being the only D-backs bullpen in team history that was worse. So anyway, we could harp on these numbers all day long. I think you all get the story that this Diamondbacks bullpen is not good, and it is a problem, and it's something that they are going to need to turn around here in the coming weeks. Likely will not have the benefit of any kind of trade anytime here shortly, and it's something that's going to have to get better for this team to get back in the wild card picture for sure. But yeah, we very much appreciate all of you being with us here on a bummer of a Wednesday night of D-backs baseball. If you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. If you're watching us after the fact, you can leave a comment. We always love hearing from you, whether you're here live in the chat. We appreciate all of you who are doing that, or whether you're watching us after the fact as well. You can find us on social media. I am at Jesse and Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. Our show is at Snakes Territory. And of course, Jack does a great job covering the D-backs. He referenced a story he wrote earlier today about the D-backs bullpen woes. You can find his work over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. Jack, any other musings before we say goodbye on this rough Wednesday night?
Well, I just also wanted to give a shout out to Michael McDermott, who wrote a really good article about David Bednar on our website. And also be sure to check out Alex D'Agostino's writings. He's been diving into, some of the potential trade opportunities that may be out there for the Diamondbacks if they end up selling and who's interested. There's one on Josh Naylor and there's one on Eugenio Suarez. So definitely, in between our podcast, when you have a moment, please check us out. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. Really need that subscription.
Yeah, we're closing in on 1,000. We're getting close, so we really appreciate your support on that front. Thank you all again for being with us. We really appreciate it, and we'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday night, with Thursday afternoon more so, with a post-game show after this Blue Jays series concludes. So we hope to see you then. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you all.